Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're here today with a good friend, Ann Cavera. Ann recently released her first published novel, Ride a Summer Wind, at age 81. And I can disclose that because I know that Ann discloses it. The book is a novel for 12 to 18-year-olds. Ann graduated from Florida State University and served as a teacher with the Peace Corps in Liberia, West Africa, where she met and married her husband, Jim, another Peace Corps volunteer. Over the years, she's been a middle grade teacher, um, a youth minister, a college counselor. Through it all, she's been a writer. Now that her children are grown, she enjoys the company of her grandchildren and the middle grade children that she creates characters for in her novels. And also has a podcast with the fantastic title of Speeding Past 80. I just love that. You can learn more about her at AnnCaveraWriter.com. That's AnnCaveraWriter.com. So Ann, congratulations on all you've accomplished, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Brian. I'm glad to be here.
So what else would you like people to know about you?
Well, you've covered most of it, I think. We have 4 children. They're all grown. And my son, Chris, is the one who helps me with the podcast. I'm not tech savvy for editing or filming or anything like that, but he has recorded and edited all 100 episodes. We celebrated our 100th episode last week, and we've been on the air since February 2022. And this has just been a wonderful thing for me because I was homebound at the time. My husband had Alzheimer's. He's since passed away. And I thought I would just do it while he had Alzheimer's. But this has become a real lifeline for me. And I've made friends in Kenya, Canada, Japan, and all over the United States. It's been a wonderful thing.
Well, I mean, the reason why I wanted to interview Ann is because I just consider her such a role model for entrepreneurship at a relatively advanced age. I mean, speaking as another person with a lot of gray hair, it's like there aren't as many of you that I'd like to see in terms of people that, really do some great things and don't let age get in the way.
Well, I think there are a lot more of us than people realize. And some of the things that people do that are great at this age are not the kind of things like podcasting or writing, but they may be doing great things, just taking care of a loved one or raising grandchildren or just being the one who's always there at the funeral luncheons at church. There are many, many ways to do great things at this age. And some of them don't involve technology, which is a very good thing.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of people who do contribute in many different and valuable ways. But let's talk about your publishing journey. Tell us about your new book and how that came about.
Well, I think I was like a lot of people who had a book tucked away in a drawer that maybe they started long, long ago. When our daughter was about 5 or 6, we realized she had a gift for music. And I just wanted to write a book with music in it for her. Okay, she is not 6 anymore. I won't say her age, but she is an adult, lives on the West Coast, and she has a wonderful career in music. So when I was thinking, and I guess it was about 2014, our life was undergoing some changes. And I thought, what do I really want to do with the rest of my life? And I really wanted to write something I had not let myself engage in fully because my first calling was to take care of the kids, grandkids, Jim. Family was first. And I really felt as if I tried to write and gave it everything I could, my family would fall short. So 2014, I'd taken care of almost everybody, and I dug that book out of a drawer. I went to Mount Hermon Christian Writers Conference that year, and I got some wonderful help there. It still wasn't publishable, so I began taking classes. I began reading, trying to learn what I needed to learn to really write a book. And I finished that about 2017. I felt it was really done. Well, I finally found a publisher last year, Elk Lake Publishing, and they have been just wonderful. And I realized after I found them, the book that I thought was finished, hey, it needed more stuff done to it. So they worked with me. I worked with a wonderful editor. Well, Deb Ogle-Haggerty is head of Elk Publishing. She's great to work with. And Carol McLean was my editor. And Crystal, I think her last name is Phelps. I'm not sure. Anyway, the editors at Elk Lake were really, really wonderful. And the book came out March 21st, and I'm having a really good time with it.
Yes. So speaking of which, I know that you did a couple of book parties recently. Can you tell folks about how that went?
Yes. I have been to a lot of book signings in my 81 years. And the way they're usually run is that the poor author sits in a prominent place in a bookstore or some other venue, and there's a stack of books next to her or him, and they kind of try to make they make eye contact with people walking by, or they hope to. People walking by try not to make eye contact, and maybe you'll sell 2 or 3 books. Okay, I wanted to do something different. So I did not call this a book launch. I called it a book party. And I knew I would lose money up front. I think that's okay in the beginning. I don't want that to be the case further down the road. But I decided to have it in a coffee shop near us that gets a lot of traffic. And they were very kind to let me come in there one afternoon. And the party was that my daughter from California, the musician, and a couple of local musicians provided a lot of bluegrass music, which is in the book. And I bought some of the merchandise in the coffee shop to give as prizes. And we did not have hundreds of people. We had about 25. And we had music, and every now and then we would pause in the music, and Katie would ask me a question, and I would give a 1 or 2 minute answer to the question. The first one was, why did you write this book? And the second, why did you dedicate it to grandparents? And the third and last question was, tell us a little about the story. And each of those 3 bursts lasted less than 2 or 3 minutes. And at the end, we drew for prizes, and people bought books. We sold about 16 books there. And at the second venue that I had the next night, we sold 14 more books. So we sold 30 books in 2 days. And my expectations were really low for the whole thing. I thought maybe 5 books each time, 10 tops. So I was very happy. And I had a good time, and I think everybody else did too.
Yes, I mean that's what's so cool about it is the way you're going about this is, not to try to be, a New York Times bestseller. You're trying to do it, to offer something to the world, but have fun doing it and engage people around
I think if you spread joy, people will come.
it.
And that was the whole idea, to spread joy and let whoever come. And there were people there I didn't know. I knew most of them, but one woman came and she looked tired, and she came late. She sat down, and she came to me at the signing table later, and she said, this was exactly what I needed. She said, I have been so depressed, so down, and this really gave me the lift I needed. My husband's going into hospice tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And the thing was, when we were playing the final song, or maybe a couple before that, she had gotten up and started dancing. And she came back the next night, and same thing. She stayed, she bought a book for a friend, she danced the last 2 or 3 songs. And when she came to get her book signed for a friend, I said, what did I said, do you go to church here? It was our parish church. I said, do you go to church here? And she said, no, I go to Peace Lutheran. And that was over in a different part of town. I said, well, I knew you went somewhere because you've got the joy. And she laughed. But she helped me understand that when you spread joy, everybody wins.
Amen. Amen. So being a fellow grandparent, I have to ask you basically the question that your daughter asked. Why did you write a book about grandparents?
Well, I didn't realize in the beginning that I was writing this for grandparents as well as for teens. But there are, and I discovered this when I was researching grandparents, there are 3 million grandparents in this country alone who are the sole caregivers for their grandkids. Now, these are retired people. They may have chronic illness. They could have heart problems, arthritis, all kinds of things that make life a challenge for them every single day. It may be difficult just to get out of bed, much less take care of a grandchild. And their resources may not cover the cost of raising a child. Maybe they're on Social Security. But when their grandchildren need a parent and the parent can't be there, these grandparents are stepping up to the plate. And they're doing the best that they can day after day after day. And I think there's beginning to be some recognition for the sacrifices they make. There are grandparent groups coming up in different parts of the country. And I know that there are resources online that they can access and resources at libraries. So they're beginning to be recognized, I think, as people who are silently making great sacrifices for the young people in this country who don't have parents available.
Hmm. Well, that's very cool that you're highlighting that. I think it's important. So I'd like to read from a couple of the endorsements for the book. This one is from our good friend, Jennifer Grant. Cavera doesn't shy away from the grim reality of poverty and loss. And as honest and broken as some of her characters are, readers are left with a sense of hope as well as a reminder of the value of regarding others with respect and love. And then this endorsement is another one of our good friends, Glennis Nellis, who says, Anne Cavera skillfully weaves together themes of friendship, forgiveness, and courage in this readable, relatable, and educational tale. So what were some of the personal values that, you look for your characters to demonstrate in the book?
Well, first of all, I always want to write about love and what love really is, because I think we have so many false images of love today. And I wanted to write about the steadfast love of this grandfather, who, in spite of his illness, in spite of his lack of resources, he gives her everything he's got. He gives her his love, and he gives her his talent. She has a gift for music, and he has a gift for music, and he passes that on to her. So I wanted to write about a grandfather who just hangs in there no matter what. And so that was one of the values. The other thing I wanted to, and I really didn't write this as something I wanted to teach. I really wanted to write just a great adventure story that happened to have some of these things that I believe in it. I wanted people to understand that if your family isn't the typical, stereotypical, two-parent, 4 kids or 2 kids or whatever family, that families can be created. And in the story, the grandfather and the granddaughter make the family, but also there's another girl in the story whose parents really aren't there for her. Her mother's gone, and the father is very busy with his own life, and she becomes a third member of their family. So I wanted to talk about families that bond outside the normal, what you think of as traditional family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to say something about life and death. I wanted to say very clearly at the end, when we think everything is over, all is lost, they're gone, that death is not an ending, it's really just a beginning. So those were the main things I wanted to say. And there may have been other things too, but those three things I really wanted to say, especially to young people.
Very cool. So, as I mentioned earlier, I really consider you to be a role model for, entrepreneurship later in life. What kind of choices have you had to make, or, what kind of thoughts did you have kind of as you went off on your own, so to speak, to become a solopreneur?
Well, I still have trouble with focus, and I think I've talked to you about that, Brian. I have other things in life that need to be done. I need to be writing because my personal choice is to try to have one book completed every year that God gives me.
Wow.
And I have one that's close. I have a second one that's about a third of the way done. But that is hard to find time to do now that I have become a business person. And the other choice is I really need order in my life. Jim and I made his journey together, and it was 8 years altogether. And I just let things go. About 20 feet from me, on the other side of this plate glass window, is a 40-foot pine tree with poison ivy on it. Now, I have just begun to get a landscaper to try to do something about that. But that should have been taken care of 3 or 4 years ago. And you can't see in this room, but I have a stack of 100 books I've pulled off my bookshelves to try to give away or take to the church rummage sale or give to people who might enjoy them. I'm trying to simplify everything so that I can do what I really want to do, which is write, podcast, and go out and meet people. It's just so hard to get those things done. So I just need to do a few things so that I can be free to do what I want to do.
Isn't it amazing how getting things off your plate really frees up a person,
Yeah.
to focus on the things that you really care about?
Yes, I have a story about that. I don't know if I've mentioned it. Maybe I have before, but on Ash Wednesday, I wanted to give up something for Lent. And I hadn't given up anything. I'm not very successful giving up food. But I thought, what if I just didn't turn the TV on during Lent? And ours is in a cabinet where you can close the doors. So I closed the doors and I thought, I hope I last longer than a couple of days. And the first couple of days were uncomfortable. And then I began really enjoying the quiet. Now, it's past Lent, and I have not turned the TV on except for 15 minutes twice when the weather was bad. I really like life better without the television.
Wow.
I'm able to think better, but I'm sure I'll go back and see some of the things I really appreciate on TV. But for now, I'm happy just trying to think my way through things, trying to get a little more organized, trying to think what I need to do next for the books. So that's one thing that really simplified my life.
That's a good example. I mean, it certainly would free up a lot of time,
Yes.
for reading or writing or whatever you want to use it for.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's been a real help. It's made me think about what's really important.
Cool. Yes, I couldn't speak highly enough about that need in a person's life.
Yeah.
What advice do you have now that you've gone through as much as you have along this journey? What advice do you have for those that are just considering going off on their own?
Well, if somebody wants to start something brand new, especially later in life, the thing that was most helpful for me was to ask myself, what would I be doing if I were 21? And if it's still possible to do it now, just go for it. I'm blessed with a son who can help me with the podcasting. But at 21, I really wanted to write. And at 81, I really want to write. And so that's what I'm doing. I began writing knowing that I might never find a publisher. I really don't have the means to self-publish and do it well, with all kinds of editing, cover art, that kind of thing. And so I knew that if I did not find a traditional publisher, I would just run my stories off and put them in binders for presents at Christmas. It would come to that. But if it's what you really want to do, I think you just have to do it and see where it lands.
You mentioned this a little bit about this, but in terms of the future, it sounds like you've got two books that are in the works.
Yes.
I don't want you to disclose anything that's premature, but can you tell us anything about those?
I'd love to tell you about those. In 2017, when I finished this book, I knew I wanted to start something new, and I did not have 47 years to write it. So I began praying about it and thinking about it, and I wanted the hero to struggle against an anti-hero, but I didn't want it to be human. And so I thought, and I'd heard about a pandemic. So in 2017, before there was a pandemic, I sat down and I wrote 1,000 words a day for 90 days, for 3 months.
Wow.
And I wrote this story in 3 months. And it was about, it's set in the far distant future after technology has imploded, which is every old person's dream. So it's set in the far distant future in Ireland, which I've never been to, but I hope to go to maybe next year. And these two children lose their parents in the pandemic, but an aunt who lives some distance away sends them an old Bible, and she's an herbalist. And in the margins of the pages where you record your family history, she has written an herbal formula that will cure the pandemic. And the pandemic causes blindness. It takes a long time. It causes blindness. And then once blindness is complete, there's death. So the kids have to get this formula from the tiny village in Ireland where they live to a city in the north that has been built up around a seed bank, which actually saved humanity when everything imploded. So they have to get it up there and find someone with the initials PB who can help them with it. And it's quite an adventure. I don't think I want to say any more about it.
No.
But I think it's good. I actually gave that to Elk Lake first, and I think they almost took it. But they told me, and actually Harold Underdown, who's a wonderful children's editor, I had hired him to do some developmental editing at the time, way back. And he said the tone of the book, the first half and second half, don't match. I had never realized books had a tone and they had to match first and second half. So I'm working on the first half matching the second. And the second one I'm just having fun with. It's called Verbena Watkins Has Had Enough. And it's about a woman who has 3 shiftless grown daughters that don't help her do anything. And after she does all the Thanksgiving dishes by herself on Thanksgiving night in 1967, she gets in her Nash Rambler and she leaves. And along the way, she's going to have all kinds of adventures. And the last adventure, she ends up in Maine in a house full of hippie drug dealers who are just waiting to do her in. And she gets the upper hand. I won't tell you how, but as soon as she gets out of there, she points that Nash Rambler south and goes home because Verbena Watkins has had enough.
Oh my goodness.
I'm having a really good time with that one.
You come up with some really creative stories, I'll have to say.
Well, I think the less that you can do, both of these really happened while I was taking care of Jim. When your own life kind of goes, very difficult and very hard, you still have your mind where all kinds of things can happen.
It really, really. Well, let's get back to the new book that is out and available for sale now. Ride a Summer Wind. Um, I really encourage people to go check it out online or ask your local bookstore to get copies if they don't already have it, or go to Ann's website, AnnCaveraWriter.com. So, Ann,
Yes.
thank you again for joining us, and most importantly for being such a role model for, entrepreneurship at a mature age.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. I don't feel like a role model, but I think at this age, if you focus on joy and you focus on other people, life can be good.
Amen.
Thanks so
Amen.
much, Brian.